All right, welcome to another episode of Getting Started.Life. Today we have an awesome guest. Well, first, Getting Started.Life, we should probably talk about, right, Mariah? It's
We
about
should.
starting new things. And we focus on the 5 steps that people need to do to start something new, anything from working out to getting your taxes in order to whatever. And then the one mistake. And we have an awesome guest. We've had her on the other show, right? Remember the other show, Mariah? We got
Yep, we're
Michele
ready.
Traina from Divorce Diaries and the Prop Box Players. So, wait 1 second. There she is. Michele, thanks for coming on the show. High energy. And always before we go into like the 5 steps, we do like talk about background, right? Like, how did you get into this and all that? And I know you're like shooting a pilot, right? That's not secret information,
I,
is it?
we just finished post-production today.
And,
Ooh.
we've been on the show. I was thinking about that because I was watching Pulp Fiction. It was like on last night. And there's a scene where Travolta and Samuel Jackson are talking about what a pilot is. And I'm like, whoa, great explanation of a pilot.
That's why my hair is soaking wet and I was rushing around because like between juggling the mom stuff and the TV pilot, we just finished the last edit. We're submitting it to Slam Dance, but it's a television pilot. So we're really trying to get it to an agency.
So, and what I like about this is we've got novices sometimes on, and we have people who are really good and really experienced. And you've kind of done it, right? Like you look at it and say, there's people who are like, oh, I do community theater and things like that. But you really have turned performing and being funny in your case, but it could be other performing for people into a job. So talk a little bit about how you got into that.
So when I was a kid, my dad instilled in me that I need to do what I love to do because you're going to be miserable. Because he was forced into cutting hair as a living with this structure of family life. And from as a kid, I always loved whatever I love to do. I always like, oh, I'm going to do this. At first, I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be an artist. And then it went to a lawyer. And then it went to actor. And then it went to acting and teaching. And I juggled the two because I was getting married at one point and I needed to settle down. I hate that word settle down, but I needed to stop traveling.
I couldn't see settle down and you being like on the same plane.
No, exactly. And I loved performing and I love helping people through performance. So I think that actor, comedian, dancer, and teacher all kind of went into one thing. And I've been very lucky that I've had periods of my life where I'm consistently doing what I love to do. And then when doing what I love to do in a structure, I was teaching full time a couple years ago, and I felt like I reached a plateau and it was time to go back to performing full time. I have a theater company that I started on my own, and I just created my work. Like acting can be a difficult business, but if you create opportunities for yourself, it's just like every other field, right? You have to kind of put in the work, put in the time, and make it happen,
Right. Now, but it's the other thing before we obviously go into like what people need to do. I follow your stuff on social media and I know how hard you work. So I think people have to realize like, just because we're talking about like, hey, here's the 5 things to get started. There's easier things to get started, like, giving up caffeine or something like that. And like making up a career.
Right. Sorry. So I'm sorry. Say that last part again.
Oh no, I was saying that there's a lot to it. It's a little bit harder than some of these other things. So I think people have to temper what they're learning from you with like what the reality is and how hard it can be.
Yeah, you have to find what works for you and your personality and how you process, right?
Yep.
How you navigate in the world.
Look, Mariah, did you have something before we jump into the?
I think what I think is interesting too is I know a couple of people who have chosen performing as their careers. And I think there's this misconception that if you're going to be an actor, you're just going to be in Hollywood. And it just kind of happens. Like you show up in Hollywood and somebody sees you and you're a star. But there's so many working actors and performers that aren't in that Hollywood bubble, too, that there's a lot of opportunity that doesn't exist just on being on the big silver screen.
I just want to give you a hug. I'm sorry. And high five. Because that is so true. And actually, a lot of happy individuals who are acting that are not celebrities and not Hollywood Hill homes and are making their living performing and bringing joy to people's life.
Unless you're an extra, I can tell you don't make. I did that once, and you don't make a lot of money doing that.
That's dependent on what you're looking at. Like, are you working for a theater company? Or are you?
No. I was an extra, like in a movie thing, and it was like, we actually got union dues because they needed ex-military. But that even just doing that was hard, and they made crap. It was good food, but it was like very hard.
But that is all relative too, because I got offered to do, so I think it's all relative to what your goal is, right?
Yep.
So if your goal is like, for me, my goal is to just work continuously as an actor, writer, comedian. And I also have this love for teaching. So I can do both, right? I can do all those. I have different hats. But if you specifically want to just be an actor on film and then pouring yourself into opportunities like background work, being a PA, having a lunch, having coffee, creating your own opportunities that you could have. Yeah.
That makes sense. So I think we're like getting too granular on the steps. So like, okay, someone now is in a situation, a lot of our listeners could be divorcing, right? And saying, hey, I'm going to do something new. Why not do something cool? Like, what I've always wanted to do, like you were talking. What's the first step? What do they got to do?
So what I started to do was I wrote everything out. I kept a notebook and it was a brain dump, right? Or I called it a brainstorm, but it's a brain dump because the way I process personally is I have a lot of ideas and the first step is to get them all out.
And sounds like someone else we know, Doug.
Yes. I'm like the guy who was talking like he's about, what is it, the movie Night Shift? Remember that movie with Michael Keaton? And he had the tape recorder to write all the ideas down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need one of those.
So it is. And my therapist, my friends, my mom, like everyone around me was all out on paper. And I already had known that from my previous experience in college. And we used to write artist notes, which is basically the same thing, but every day you get up and do it for 15 minutes. Whether
are you talking like random, like stream of consciousness, brain to paper, or did you like organize it? Like, here's a story idea, and here's like a character that I like, and like, or did you organize it at all?
So it's called morning pages or artist notes, and that can be associated with the brain dump. And you get up first thing in the morning and you write for 15 to 20 minutes without stopping. And that means like pen to paper or your fingers to the keyboard. You don't stop. And it could just be, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write, ... So that there's no wrong, but you don't stop. And then after that, if you want to go on to another task of writing out thoughts that stuck, that's all part of like a brain dump. That would be my first step, because once you get it out, then you're looking at it, right? Now, how can you search for something if you're not putting it all out there on the table?
How much do you keep that to yourself, right? Because, and I don't want to step on it, so it's another step. Tell me, but like I look at it and I'm saying, if I sat and did that for 15 minutes every day, people would think I am crazy. They would look and go, it's confirmed this guy is bonkers.
I disagree with that, because I actually think it's very therapeutic for I tell literally I supervise a student teaching program at Adelphi University. I tell my students to do that. I tell anybody any one of my friends or family, do it. It's not crazy. It's actually very helpful. So
no, I don't think the process is crazy. I think if someone read my brain dump. That's what I'm saying. No, I don't think it's crazy. I think it's a great idea, but I'm like, I would have to lock these notebooks up somewhere, because they would look and go, yes, it's confirmed. He's bonkers.
That's a great point, because what do you share? What do you not share? It's personal. So I believe you don't share it. If you want to share it, great. I have shared pieces of my artist notes with my work because of what I do. I like sharing, but I think it's totally personal. I think that you take from that, it's kind of like getting all the goop out in the morning, you know?
It's a good idea. Okay, so Mariah, did you have something?
Nope, okay.
So now they've got all these great ideas out. Now, wait, before we go into this, do they need a plan? Like, they're starting to write ideas down, but they can't make money doing that. So do you obviously recommend that they've got some other kind of source of income or support as they're venturing down the road? Because it's going to be years before they start making money.
So of course, yes, you have to be making some kind of money. But if you're if I look at it where you're miserable at your job, right, or you want to change, get the ideas out, right? So that's the first step.
While you're in the job, though,
right? Because unless you have like savings and you want to kind of jump out into the deep end, that's a personal thing. I'm actually a risk taker, so like you might not agree with me, but if I have a good friend of mine who is in this position where he doesn't want to leave the job that he has because it's providing a lot of money, but he has enough saved where he could leave for a year.
Interesting.
And I keep telling him to, otherwise he's not going to get ahead in his field.
Right.
He's also an actor and comic, and he's been doing it for years. And I keep telling him, like, you've been doing this for years. If you don't dedicate full time to it, you're never going to grow.
Well, right. And he's not starting from scratch either, right?
He's not.
Right. He's been driving around the track a little bit slow, and now it's time to put it in gear.
So if you are starting from scratch into a whole new field, I agree. You do have to have some source of income. And if you have savings and you want to say, hey, I'm going to take the plunge. After you do that, is it okay if I go on to the second step?
That's a great segue. You must be a professional at this.
So after you have all that brain dump, then you have to make, I mean, you can call it a timeline, a goal list, a blueprint. For me, I do a 1 month, a 3 month, a 6 month, and a 1 year. For me, I know a lot of people do like a year, a 3 year, 5 years, and you can do that. But for me personally, I'll do the first year and then I'll do the 3, 5, 10 in like just statements, right? So that if I take my brain dump and I just list my goals, right, and what really sticks out, then I just go to a timeline of what do I really want to make happen. And this blueprint, right, this plan, that might take like a week to kind of formulate, and it's going to change too, but at least you have something to work from. Like as a teacher, as an actor, we have a script, we have a blueprint to teach from. This is going to guide you in what it is you really want from this new venture, from this, right?
That's a cool step, because I think, and you think about acting as being a very, like, not necessarily organized, like, you know what I mean? Like it's something that's sort of nebulous, and it's in the arts and all that. But what I'm hearing is it's no different than sorry.
That's right. I had a garbage truck outside my window.
Well, that was a vintage World War II plane or something. But it's that plan to succeed thing, right? Like it's if you don't do it, you'll end up driving around the track really slow and never get anywhere with it.
I believe that regardless of the field, you need a plan in place. I use a website called Trello. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a friend of mine introduced it to me, and it took a while to get to. I really like it because you can just put all these different boards up, and you can go back to it. It gives you calendars, and it organizes. If you have more than one venture that you want to look at, you can put that all on there. So that helps me with a blueprint. It still does, but you also have to find what works for you. I have 2 memo boards in my room. Like one is for notes, one is for the tracking of the timeline, right? So it's important to have it, because if you don't hold yourself accountable, like how are you going to hold yourself accountable? Hey, Terry.
Yeah. We all know Terry. Terry's awesome.
Siri thought I was talking to her. I'm not talking to you, Siri. I feel like the blueprint of, like, again, it's a blueprint. I would say it's goals. What are your goals? What's your major goal? For me, is to be working on set every day. Now that used to change. When I was working in theater, it was like to be on Broadway. I still want all those things, but where I'm at right now is to be on set every day working as an actor. And if it changes to being on stage as a working actor, great. But like, it's the main goal. So then I want my series on a network and to be on set every day, right? Then we expand. What's 3 months from now? What's 6 months from now? What's the 1 year? What's the 3 years?
Well, one thing I really like what you said is you had measurable. You said every day, and it just came off like that. And having been in sales for a long time and being a sales manager at some points in my life and managing even bigger organizations, it was always measurable, specific. So it's not like, hey, I want to be on set. Well, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Right.
What you're talking about with the goals are that, again, acting, staring down this way is no different. It's like, what does that mean to you? Does it mean your 6 months is working once a month in something and gaining some experience? Or is it, hey, I'm taking the plunge kind of thing? I thought that was very cool.
So when I was teaching still full time, I gave myself 1 year. The last year was there. I gave myself 1 year, and I actually left within 4 months because I had because what had happened was I had made a plan of what I can live off of if something fell through, what I had in savings. I just started to knock out what do I need to do to get to just back into, I'm a performer full time, and I'm making the transition, right? So then the goal for me was within 1 year, I had a set structure of what's making me income, right? As with my theater company and part-time teacher and full-time actor, what do I need continue to do to increase my income, and what are all the strategies that didn't work, we're putting them to the wayside, and then we're keeping this on a notebook of like, and this is where we're going from here. So you have to be, yeah.
No, I was going to say, you were talking budget and finance, which is really cool. Because again, now, is that one of the steps? Am I stepping on one of the steps, or?
So I'd say that the goals is a second step. I would say the third step is I would probably combine finance with goals, but I think for me, a better version of myself would make finance a separate goal, because you have to include all your personal, finance is a beast. And I'm still trying to figure it out. And
I was going to ask you how, when you're doing pluses and minuses, right, and figuring it out, how do they figure out like how much it's worth, your time? Like if you are an extra, like great, you're getting exposure, you're making opportunity, but you're making minimum wage probably. Or if you want to get into voiceover work, what should you be charging? How do you, just the income side seems exceptionally complex.
So I think that's a great point. I think step 3 was coming up with a profit. How do I make money from it? Right. And I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk fan. So like I obsessively and in working on your finances is also researching people that motivate you on how to make an income that's user friendly, because for me, that's the work. Like I'm not great at it. I'm not a spender, but I'm not great at like making profit off of like NFTs, all these fabulous things that people invest in. Like I know nothing about that. And also when I started a business, I was too kind and sweet about giving things away for less than I should have.
Hear that, Mariah? We talk about that in our stuff too, where you're like, if you're a nice person, people will unintentionally sometimes take advantage of it.
Yep.
And you have to, I think that the finance component is doing research with your professional, your area of expertise, researching other people that are doing what you're doing. And then also putting into play your personal finances and where you need to grow, right? Like I have to put both in the category, because I have my own personal financial goals, what I have to put into my theater company, what I have to put into freelance work that I get, and then Divorce Diaries, because that's actually a business, like a LLC now. So I had to really sit down and look at that as a whole. And sometimes I have to pause on my theater company because of all the work I'm doing with Divorce Diaries, because I'm a one-man show right now, one-woman show.
Right.
Like, I don't have I have my accountant that guides me, but he's not full-time.
Right. Do you ever use like interns and stuff to help you out? People want experience, but then you don't have to pay for it? Maybe pay for it a little bit? Buying dinner?
I tried to get like a sales intern to help me with selling tickets, and it took more time looking for one.
Yeah.
So at the moment, no. But down the road, definitely open to it. I've been using guidance of peers and colleagues that have people that give me free advice. And it's not that I'm asking for freebies, but they don't mind spending 10 minutes on the phone to have a conversation. And then I found my entertainment lawyer that way. And he's reputable, and he doesn't mind giving me conversations that don't cost me money, because he's getting his services through other things for me. And he's a decent dude.
Right.
So you got to shake the trees. So with you have your brain dump, you have your goals, and then you have a financial plan.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a big QuickBooks. I wish I knew all those things. I just write it out and say, this is what bills I have every month. This is what I'm making. And this is what I want to make. And this is what I charge. Like all those things are on a spreadsheet.
Right. And it just seems like people, as a king of overcomplicating things, people overcomplicate things. So I love that. But something came to mind as you were talking is, do you find that subject matter experts are better than the research you're going to do on the internet? Because everybody's an expert on the internet, but they're really not. They don't know anything, unless it's me, and I know a lot. But I got something like Trump there for a minute. I know a lot. But you generally found it better to like find somebody through someone who already has credibility then.
Yeah, I think it's overwhelming to go on the internet for me personally. I have a lot of friends that go right to Google when it comes to like, oh, my child's sick, let me see what it is. Or I just can't do it. It's too anxiety driven. It's drives me nuts.
I don't think everybody speaks good Google. I think you have to know how to use Google to have it work in your favor. Otherwise, yeah, it's just a jumble of advertisements and wormholes that you can go down that don't make any sense. I don't think Google is designed for everyone. Don't tell Google that, they would disagree, but agreed.
And like what you said too, it's like it can't, like, because we all go to it, right? But it navigates us sometimes in the wrong direction. I think that, you know, I like LinkedIn a lot because it's introduced me to a lot of people. We met through LinkedIn, Doug, and I met somebody from a couple of people on LinkedIn that have guided me in positive ways and have, you know, my show. I get creeped on Instagram and TikTok. So like, sure. They're not like.
I however never get creeped on. I can assure you that.
Like on LinkedIn, I found some really decent humans that could provide information and are reputable.
No, this is a great point. We're gonna go to commercial for the last two, and then come back for the last two steps in the big mistake. So we're gonna take a quick break. I never had the timing down quite right. Yeah. There we go. All right, and we're back. So, kind of recapping, brain dump.
Yeah.
Come up with the goals, measurable goals, and then come up with a plan. Finances, obviously, being part of it. What's step 4?
Find people that you want to be in their position and get them for coffee. So, ask them for coffee. So, make a list start researching people that you're like, I want their job. Or, like, in other words, Greg Daniels, right? Of course, I'd love to be Greg Daniels. I can't go say, hey, Greg Daniels, let's have coffee. But see, like, who would be maybe someone that worked for him, and then go to that like, I don't want to say lower level, but, you know, like a junior agent or an assistant to an assistant.
Entry level.
Find people that are in your field that you want, that you could possibly be a mentoree from. Did I say that correctly? Like, they could eventually mentor you. Like, for me, I met a consulting producer that is interested in my show, and I met him through another person who's in the industry who has a podcast about divorce, who I would have never met unless he found me on Instagram, right?
You got to get out there is what you're saying.
You have to get out there. So step 4 is find people who you want their work, like you want to be in their field, their position. And I think that if you can't get those conversations with that specific person, then you kind of go around them, like, who is somebody that would be connected to them? Who is somebody that has a similar position that would, you know, hire me or hire my services or my product, right?
Now, if someone doesn't know, and maybe it's a whole nother show. If someone doesn't know, like, if you're totally getting into this cold, then you don't know, like if I were to watch the credits of a movie, I don't know what half those things. I mean, like what's a grip? Like what's this? Like if someone wanted to be part of that, I know that's not necessarily the performing side, but how do they figure out what those jobs are?
So if someone has no idea, right, of the positions in film, there's so many resources. I mean, you could, I would go right to a production. What is a production crew list, right? Like go to basic terms of that field.
That's where Google is useful.
That is where it would be useful. Yeah, I'd say like basic things like that. But I also think that if somebody has a specific thing in mind, like if you want to write a television show series, right? What's your favorite? Like my favorite television series is The Office, right? The Golden Girls before that.
No Seinfeld? You're a comedian?
I am. I love Seinfeld. I love Seinfeld. But if my initial reaction right now is The Office, because what I want to do with Divorce Diaries is similar to what The Office does for me, which is makes me feel good inside, and I can watch it on repeat. The writing's so great. Seinfeld did the same thing for me too when I was in high school, all the time. Golden Girls did that for me when I was in college, believe it or not, and like it brings this light to you. So I'm
not understanding the timeline because Golden Girls was before, or
I know
you discovered it.
I watched it when I was a kid, then I rewatched it in college with my college roommate. It would get us on the worst moments when guys were being Long Island typical club guys. and so you look at the list, like who's a writer, who's a producer, who's an assistant producer, find their names, research them. And then, I mean, the hashtags are awesome because you can find people just on those. Social media is such a free way to get to know people.
And I'm glad there's at least one good thing that can come out of social media.
I know it can be.
I think too, though, if you're putting yourself out there, you need to be specific with your hashtags, with your intent, because I think we know people better than we do because of social media, and lots of people don't know what I do, even though I know them well. They don't know what I do, or they don't know what I'm looking to do, or how I'm looking to grow my business. So if I say I want to be an actor, that doesn't mean anything to me. But if I say I want to get into, stage performances, and maybe do some improv, there might be a bell that goes off in my head. And I know someone who does improv, and there's your connection. But you need to be more specific.
Agreed. Specific is important because I've had the tendency in my life, like I was a dancer, I was musical theater, I do children, I do Shakespeare, I do so many things.
Yep.
Right? It's like, okay, well, where do you go first? Where's your heart at right now? What's really grabbing your attention? Exactly. Specificity, and then also being able to communicate in specific, clear, concise manner to the person what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
I write out a bunch of lines all the time of like, what do I want to get, what am I trying to get from this conversation with this person, and what can I contribute back to them that makes them think I'm not just coming in for myself?
Yep.
All right. So now, again, brain dump plan, or brain dump goals plan, and meeting the people who can make that plan a reality is kind of what I was feeling from that, and probably some refinement. So now, what's step 5? What do they do next?
Go out and do it. I know that sounds very basic, but like if you don't get up and do something, it's never going to happen. So what that means for me is like, when I was getting divorced and I was like lost, really, right? There was a new work series in New York City, and I was like, I'm putting something up in this. I don't know what it is, but I'm putting something up. I'm doing it, right? I just did it. So if they're not, maybe it's somebody wants to start a shampoo line. I don't know, right? Then create something at home. My daughter and I would make bath bombs at home. You can learn how to make anything now, right? Like just start it. You have to physically start it, because if you just write about it, it doesn't come up, right? Like my friend wanted to start a podcast. He did, but now he's put it on pause because his business that's making him income is making money. I'm like, but see, there's the problem. Commit to doing something at least. Give yourself, what's the minimum? What's the max? Get up and do it. Give yourself a minimum. I can do this at least once a week, and the maximum is 5, right?
So something that comes to mind, though, like you use the shampoo example, and we're talking about performing, right? Two different things. Like nobody can stop me. Like there's no gatekeeper for me to go out in the garage and be like, I'm going to formulate an awesome shampoo. But there are gatekeepers in what you do. So when you say just do it, like I totally get it, and it makes sense, right? Like you can't be shy. It's got to be activity, not motion. and you got to get out there and make the goals a reality and execute the plan. But how, when you say just do it, like how do they find and get past those gatekeepers? And it's not the one shot. Like I don't believe it's one shot where you're going to make it, but you got to get a lot of shots on goal to hit a couple of goals.
So, right. I think it's how, again, as an actor, people think there's not a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot. There's so many opportunities for people to act in things, to make money. Yeah, right away they might not make money, but once you gain, it's kind of like when I got to get a couple of weeks of doing some stuff possibly for free, or I can do background work and get paid for it and meet some people. And now that I have this experience, I can create a play that's a 10-minute play, and I'm going to charge people $5 a ticket, and we're going to own it at this space. And now you're starting to generate your own ideas. So it's really about thinking outside the box. I believe truly wholeheartedly. I've worked with a lot of actors who are really talented, medium, and some that are not talented at all. And I've worked with actors I've seen that aren't the best actors, but they're making decent money and working full time because of they've put themselves in the right positions, right? Yeah. They've hustled at it. I think that it's about like just finding opportunities, right? But and if it's about with acting, it's you go to the trade papers, backstage, casting networks. People find each other on Instagram and other social media stuff too now to get hired. You saw what I did with my show over the pandemic. I created it online.
Well, and like when I did the thing as an extra, not that I'm quitting my job anytime soon. Like my brother had been an extra in another movie, and he forwarded something saying they're looking for ex-military who looked genuine. I didn't have all this going on then. Unless it was like a Civil War movie. But it was a thing where, they were looking for people, and it was, hey, you should try this. And I was like, this is really cool. Like I could see where people get hooked on that. But I could see also where there are these opportunities where if you're really looking, and then you probably execute what you got to execute, right? Like you do what you said you're going to do, then there's more, you find more opportunities.
Yeah. I think that there's a wellness component every field. We all get burnt out. I as an actor, as a writer, as a teacher, I've been burnt out on all fields, but I still love them. So when we have to identify that when we get burnt out, we know the tools to get us back to where we need to get up and go out and do it. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Because I think that every field has a component of people who are passionate. There's people that are passionate about whatever they're passionate about, but you're going to get burnt out with anything. So it's like, how do you take a break, take a second to reset, and get back in there, Totally.
So great information about like how to do this, right? But again, you've been doing it a long time, so I can't wait to hear what's the biggest mistake? Like what do people do wrong that ends up blowing up the other 5 steps, I guess?
Fear of rejection, right? The fear of it not being good enough and letting that hold you back. I think drinking and doing like drugs. I know that sounds pretty blatant, but like that holds a lot of people back. That makes people not motivated to get up in the morning.
Right.
My opinion from what I've seen. And I've heard, I listened to Nikki Glaser say this as a comedian. She said, she stopped drinking. She's like, she said she stopped drinking and she stopped smoking and she got more focused. And I'm not a big drinker and I don't smoke, but even when I went during the pandemic, I had stopped having wine every night. I got up at 5 a.m. every morning to write. And that showed me, and then I wrote my pilot. So I was like, all right, and I'm already a go-getter. Like that helped me a lot. I feel like cutting out things that are in almost like an addictive pattern. Trust me, I still love my wine, but like things that can start to like pull you back from getting up and going for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, it sounds like distractions and stuff that are.
In my case, the men I date.
Well, I'm sorry, say again.
In my case, the men I typically date usually become distractions.
Well, that's all part of your comedy routine. Yeah. So, but it's interesting. You talked about the fear of rejection, but you also, one thing that stood out, and I don't know if this is like a counter mistake to know when to cut bait, but you said you've worked with some really good actors and you've worked with some really terrible ones, right? Like, And I could see this kind of thing, people being like, man, I'd be really good at this. And then they go into it and there's just no hope. Like it'd be like me trying to play professional basketball. I could be like, well, I really want to do this. I have a great plan, but it ain't happening.
Well, I think again, like I'm always I should never say that I've worked with really bad actors. I've worked with people where I feel like, are they putting in the amount of work that I'm putting in, or someone else is? But I think that it's all relative. So like the glass is half full, right? If you really want something, you have to dedicate and sacrifice to get that goal, right? And I think it's a matter of like, it's only hopeless if you think it's hopeless. I know it sounds cheesy, but like there are so many people on a daily basis that tell me, and I shouldn't say on a daily basis, but there are many people that have told me I'm not going to make money from my pilot. I am not, this is just going to be my calling card, that, you know, this, it takes a lot that remind me of that. And I can accept that. That doesn't mean, and I can feel bad about certain things, but I'm still going to go for it. I'm still going to propel me forward.
Do you recommend, like, some people are, you know, you hear some of the best songs ever written, right? And then you'll hear the person who wrote it, like, play it, and they're terrible. Like, you're like, I totally get it. That's where their aptitude in that world is. Do you recommend that as people are moving down this, like, let's say they have so much fear of rejection, it just doesn't, that they'll never be able to do it, or fear of failure or whatever? Is there a good way to pivot to say, maybe I should be involved in a different way
100%.
and still be doing it?
Yeah, I see Mariah shaking her head because that's, as a teacher, I have to find people's strengths and use them to fulfill what their role is as a student and what they're supposed to learn, how they're supposed to learn, how are they contributing to the team using their strengths. So I think, I mean, I used to work with co-teachers in my classroom, and paraprofessionals, aides. I have to, and you have to juggle, right? Yep. Everyone's temperament and their strengths, because otherwise they're not going to want to be there, you know? And if somebody actually joins the field because they like it, and then they're becoming miserable at work, how do you make have to help them? And if someone's in the entertainment business and like, I really want to act and I'm not getting roles and I'm not doing this, then what they have to do is go back to that goal list, right? Go back to that blueprint and say, so what is working, what's not, right? So like for me with comedy can be very cutthroat. Like it can be very cutthroat because in every field can be, but I'm just saying, like, I can't hang out at comedy clubs at night. My child has special needs. She needs me here. She needs a routine. I can't do the same path that other comedians are doing, even comedians who have kids and are in my, I just physically can't at the moment. So I look back at my list and I say, well, what can I do? I can do live streams. I can rehearse on my own. I can transcribe myself. I can write. I can tell what's right. I can do those things. So that is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to see where that lands me in 3 months.
So, but how much then should people temper feedback with aspirations, right? So let's say you want to be an actor and you're like, hey, I should be the leading man. And it's like, no, you're the character actor who everybody sees in every movie and knows that guy's name. Like, how much should they be integrating that feedback in, and how much would be a mistake? Because people, like you said, people tell you things that are demotivating, but there might be some good feedback in there.
Yeah, I think you have to take it from the person who's giving it to you. And then I also think that if a same note is happening more than once, if it's consistent note,
if it's consistent,
you got to take it. Like everyone was telling me on the road, like you probably, Michele does her X's on the virtual show. Everyone liked it, but on the road, it's the least favorite. So in LA, one of my friends is like, so you're not going to do it again, right? I'm like, no, because now I've gotten the note 3 times. And I changed the structure in New York the other day, and it felt better for me. I felt like the audience felt better. It worked. So I had to take the note, even though I really liked that part. It was like, but nobody else is getting it, Michele. So you have to go back to the drawing board. And if like my manager gave me some notes on some things, and I was like, felt down about it. And I looked back at what I could take with a grain of salt, what I needed to listen to, because he has been in the industry for a long time. And what also may just be something I have to hold off on for now. So
it's like the performing version of like a Yelp review.
Yeah, you have to. You can listen. You can. It's like a drama. That's what a dramaturg does, and I think you can use this in life. You can take everything in, and you can revise using some. You can take none of it, or you could take all of it. That's what a dramaturg does with the play. The same thing in life.
Well, I wonder if number 5 of just doing it for some people though, like myself, because I get stuck in paralysis by analysis, right? I get stuck in thinking and planning and wanting to know every granular detail of what I'm going to do before I do it. But in this particular instance, what if I want to do it and I'm terrible at it? So, I mean, I think I'm a decent speaker. I tried to do improv once in my 20s and froze like you wouldn't believe. It's not ever going to happen for me. But if I hadn't actually done it, I could be like, oh, I could do that.
I mean, I come from a school of thought that it's a way of how you get it out of the person and tapping into it. Just because of my work with, not even my work with special populations, but I worked within so many different environments that I've spoken with people like what you just said, and then they turn around, and the way I've worked with them, they come out of their shell or they're feeling more confident. But I understand your point because what if like I'm not an artist, I can't draw a straight line and I'm 39 years old. Yep. But if I really wanted to become a visual artist, there could be I can sit down and say, these are my strengths, right? Like your strength says you have great ideas, right? And you want to be, and you want them to be heard. So maybe there's a different way. A public speaker doesn't have to talk the whole time, right? Yep. Even though speaking, right? There's other things there.
So this brings up a question for me though. And I like this ending kind of thinking, okay, if someone wants to do this, there's kind of training wheels. So even before the brain dump, right? Like if there's an open mic night, or if they're like, hey, I'm kind of funny, I'm going to go try and do that. Or I want to perform music. Like we've been talking about comedy, but music's out there too.
Yep.
Is that a good way for them to sort of say, all right, before I even invest the time of steps 1 through 5, my prologue maybe should be like, can I even set foot on a stage and sing karaoke without like having to drink or something like that, where you're saying that's actually the worst thing to do on number 5?
I mean, it's not everyone would agree with me, but I do feel like it can be a distraction. I think you have to immerse yourself. I think get to know what it is you're interested in. Go to and if you can't physically go see bands, if you want to be in a band or something, but watch it on television. Get to know different musicians. Like
watch as much reality TV as possible, right?
Yeah. And as a comedian, same thing. Like I have to constantly be like, right now I'm super behind on watching specials and watching and also creating a television series. I'm behind on, but that's I have to put in the research. I have to find what's connected to my heart that I want to do and that's out there, and immerse yourself in it. And I think that if you truly like it, you'll love immersing yourself in it.
So you've got a lot of stuff going on. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off there, Mariah?
No, I was just agreeing with her that if you
how can people find out more about what you do? You also seem like a real giver. If someone had a question, they could reach out to you. I mean, you're busy as hell, so I know that with limitations. But how can people find out more about what you do now, to do a little research, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff?
I love that. And I love helping people. That's like the main reason why I became an actor. I feel like I can help through the arts. DivorceDiaryShow.com right there. And you can also just, my email's on there. Contact me, DivorceDiaryShow@gmail.com. I'm on all social media platforms. I have Fireside thing now, and I might have hopefully we'll have some kind of show in there. I don't know. I will see. But I'm always open to talk and have conversations with people who are interested in, entrepreneurial stuff, especially in the comedy and the acting world, and children with special needs. So
when I know you just said you'd gotten back from before when we were talking in the, I guess, virtual green room. You're talking about coming back from trip. It sounds like you travel, you do shows around. Does your website have information on where you'll be performing?
Yeah, so if you go to DivorceDiaryShow.com and get tickets, my next show is in New York, October 23rd, and then I go to California again in November.
Wow, no Midwest. You don't come to the Midwest. You don't like.
No, I have been to the Midwest.
Chicago's a funny town.
I was at Zanies, Old Town, a couple of years ago. We're working on that again, and I was just in Ohio.
Okay.
This past summer. So we are working on it.
We're in Ohio.
My
family's all from Ohio. I just, I'm a Michigan.
Cuyahoga Falls. Funny
Oh,
stuff.
that's a beautiful area, Cleveland.
It is. I loved that club too. Pete was great. That owner is amazing.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I knew when you agreed to be on, it was going to be a fantastic show. Again, you've been listening to Getting Started.Life. We're really all about starting new things, learning how to do it, learning how to be successful, avoiding mistakes, and hearing it from the people who've done it. Anything you want to close out with, Mariah?
Nope, you got it.
All right. Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And if you go to our website, gettingstarted.life, there's information about upcoming shows. And I think the information is on goingsolomedia.com as well under our show. Listen to us wherever you get your podcast. And 2 important things we always like to end with. If there's something you want to know about, then reach out to us. You can find all of our information, again, on the website and such. And we'll find the guests. We'll find the people who teach you how to get started. And if you've got something you want to share, as long as it's, tasteful, then reach out. We'd love to have you on the show. It's always great finding new guests that way. Thanks much, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.